Welcome to the first episode of To-TheRoot podcast with me, Bianca Blair, where I talk about women's health, in particular fibroids, and how to heal holistically. It has taken so much courage to get to this point, and if it hadn't have been for Celia Lee, who hosted me on her podcast show, The Celia Lee Show, I would still be procrastinating. Shout out to Celia, and if you haven't done so already, I'd advise you to go and check out her show. She's amazing. My aim is to help as many women as I can who are suffering from fibroids, and generally just to build a community where we can learn from each other and finally tap into our innate ability to heal from the root. I'm hoping that this podcast will be an extension of the things that I've put on TikTok and on Instagram. I've met so many amazing women who've shared their stories with me, but I really want to be able to go deeper, and there's only so much that you can do in a 30-second video. Or maybe you've been to my website and you've read my blog posts about nutrition and holistic healing practices. Wherever you know me from, I am really glad that you're here listening to me today. Before we get started, 2 quick disclaimers. Number 1, I'm not a medical professional, and this is not medical advice. Number 2, like Q-Tip said, occasionally I curse to get my point across. So if you have young children in the background, I'd advise that you put on headphones, or if curse words offend you, then feel free to exit left right about now. Okay, let's get to it. So when I was diagnosed with fibroids, it was purely by accident. I did have some kind of knowledge of fibroids, but I didn't know much. I knew of people within my family and friends that had fibroids, but I couldn't tell you what the main symptoms were, what the cause was, or anything. I just heard the word fibroid bounced around. So I was visiting family in Gloucester, and I remember being in really intense pain. So I'd always had really bad period pains, but this was like next level pain where the painkillers aren't even touching the sides. It's just not doing anything for you whatsoever. And it got so bad that I decided to take myself to A&E. So for anybody in the UK, going to A&E is the last thing you're going to do, simply because you will be there all day and it's not a pleasant experience. So I really didn't want to go, but I was desperate. So I went along to A&E to see if they could help me and tell me what all this pain was, because I was sure that something has ruptured inside of me, because that could be the only reason why I'm in so much pain. In fact, before I go further, I just want to say one thing. This is in no way to shade the doctors, the nurses, the consultants, people that work for the NHS. I myself have family that work for the NHS, but I'm just telling you about my experience of them. Okay. So after hours and hours in the waiting room, I finally got to see a gynecologist, and she did a scan for me. And I will never forget her reaction, because it was so cold and unnecessary. These were her exact words: "You have fibroids and you have to have a hysterectomy." And as you can imagine, I was just there's no other word than discombobulated, which I think is a fantastic word. But that's exactly how I felt. I didn't know if I was supposed to turn left, turn right. I just felt completely out of it, because it's not what I was expecting. I was expecting her to say something like, "Oh, you have, I don't know, a ruptured appendix or something." I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. This is why you're in so much pain. Something has ruptured down there and you need to remove it. But I was not expecting fibroids. And after that, I was ushered out and just told to go home. But I was in such shock that I actually couldn't even move. And I remember calling my cousin and saying, "You need to come and get me, because they've just told me I need to have a hysterectomy because I've got fibroids and I just don't know what to do with myself." Bearing in mind that my family literally lived round the corner from the hospital and I could walk there in 5 minutes. But I was in such shock. So like most people that are dealing with the NHS, I was put on a waiting list, and I was told if I didn't want a hysterectomy, that my only other option would be to have a myomectomy. And for those of you who don't know, a myomectomy is the removal of the actual fibroid itself. So you keep your womb intact, but with something like a myomectomy, which I can go into in a little bit more detail in a later podcast, but just to let you know, these kind of things cause quite a lot of scarring. Anyway, I decided to go with that because at least I'd be able to keep my womb. I was put on NHS waiting list for approximately 2 years. So for 2 years, I lived with that intense pain every single month. And it was not easy at all. And I think that's one of the things that really need to be addressed when it comes to fibroids. There is just no empathy from people around you in terms of the pain that you're in and the effects that has on your life. When it comes to female issues, I find that the most common response is just take painkillers. Just take a painkiller and just get on with your life. But it's really not as simple as that, because fibroids affect every area of your life. You're not just in intense pain. There are so many different facets to it. So during that 2-year period, I got to see, and at the time I didn't think it was good, but now I realize it was fantastic, because I got to learn and see how things should work and how they're not currently working very well at the moment. So I got to see lots of consultants, lots of so-called specialists, and lots of different doctors. And one of the things that I realized really, really quickly was that everybody wanted to talk about the cure for fibroids, but nobody wanted to talk about the cause. And for anybody who has had a myomectomy, you know how intense it is to have major surgery like that. It's effectively like having a C-section, and the recovery time is really long. The only advice that I got from my surgeon after, which just thinking about it is just so ridiculous, but this was her advice to me after, was you need to go and get pregnant. If you want kids, you need to go and get pregnant right away, which just, yeah, it blows my mind that this is the kind of advice that we're giving to women in this day and age. There's no education on how your body works. It's just surgery, pills, or just put up with it. So it took me quite a while to recover, but eventually I did. And for, I would say, 2.5 years, I was good. My stomach went down, my periods were lighter, I was happy, I wasn't in as much pain, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm cured. I really actually thought that I was cured. And then out of nowhere, they came back. And when they came back with a vengeance. And for anybody who has gone through an illness and they feel that they've, cured themselves or they've recovered, when this thing comes back, it feels so cruel and it feels so unfair. And to go back to the gynecologist and to be told you now have a fibrous womb, which effectively means there are so many fibroids that they can't even count them. It took me a long time to actually process that and accept that. But the positive side of that was I was determined at that point to find out what the cause was, because there is no way that this thing just appears randomly out of nowhere. And that's what I've been doing for many years, is looking into the actual cause of fibroids and not just dealing with the symptom. One of the key things to note is that there are many studies out there that show that roughly 80% of Black women, Asian women, women of color will develop fibroids within their reproductive life. So there is a correlation there, which I'm happy to get into in further episodes. But in terms of the research as to why this is happening, it's basically non-existent. Still to this day, gynecologists and doctors are giving advice that basically if you have fibroids, that one of your options is to have a hysterectomy. Now, I don't know about you, but that just doesn't sit well with me. Whether you've had kids, you want more kids, or you don't want kids, it's completely up to you, but you shouldn't have to remove a body part because of a symptom. That makes no sense. So as I said, I had no real knowledge about fibroids other than secondhand knowledge from people who'd previously been through it. And unfortunately, the main advice that they had been given and what they gave to me was you have to have a hysterectomy. Even at that point, with no real knowledge, that advice just didn't sit well with me at all. I thought there must be a reason why these fibroids has developed. And if there is a cause, then clearly we need to address what the cause is. But nobody was talking along those routes at that time. And bearing in mind, this was around over 10 years ago now. For example, if you have a car and you start having problems with your car, you turn on the engine and every time you're driving along, you hear this knocking sound in the back and you decide, okay, I can't put up with this anymore. I'm going to go and take it to the mechanic. You take it to the mechanic, he looks over it and he says to you, do you know what? I don't know what the problem is, But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out, take that out, and it's going to cost you X amount of money. For me, the moment that you said you don't know what the cause is, then you can't help me with the cure. And I know I don't need to mention this, but the gender bias really, really pisses me off, because I know if this was a man and a man had a problem and he went into the doctors and he was like, I've been having pain in my balls and this is happening to me, that is happening to me. There is no way in hell, there is no place on this earth that a doctor would turn around to him and say, do you know what? I don't know what the cause is, but what I'm going to do for you, because I can see you're in pain, is I'm just going to chop him off. Let me just chop him off and then just get rid of that pain and you'll be fine. Never. It would never happen. So if there's one thing that I want women to take away from this episode is, in order to heal fully, you must deal with the root cause. So for anybody who has been diagnosed recently with fibroids and you're looking for a more holistic way to heal, I put together a fibroid starter pack. And to be honest, this is something that I wish that I had when I was diagnosed, because it just gives you that basic level understanding of things that are within your power to do right now to help yourself. I will leave details and links in the description for anybody that feels that they need this. So if you find this episode useful and you know anybody who could benefit from this, I'd ask that you share it with them. And until next time, take care.